As the beef fat in Tirupati Prasad controversy explodes, Pawan Kalyan calls for creation of Sanatan Dharma Rakshana Board.
Sanatana Dharma Rakshana Board is very essential to keep the sanctity of temples alive.
The call to free temples from government control rises again.
अभी जो सरकार है पूरे पुराने सरकार के लोगों को तो नहीं निकाला गया है। हमको भरोसा नहीं है कौन पुराने सरकार के लोग कहां क्या गफला करके निकल बैठे।
Time to free temples from government control. Top focus on India First.
Hello and welcome to an India Today special broadcast. I'm Gaurav Sawant. Andhra Pradesh Deputy Chief Minister Pawan Kalyan has given a clarion call to free Hindu temples from government control. In the wake of that horrifying controversy around beef tallow, pig lard and fish oil found in the ghee used to make those iconic laddus at the Tirupati Balaji temple, the Andhra Pradesh Chief Minister Chandrababu Naidu has ordered a detailed investigation into the alleged wrongdoings and malpractices at the hospital. However, Pawan Kalyan says the nation should come together to put an end to the desecration of the Sanatan Dharma in any form. He took to social media platform X to say, deeply disturbed by the findings at the Tirumala Tirupati Devsthanam Board. Pawan Kalyan called for the formation of a Sanatan Dharma Rakshana Board at a national level to look into temples across Bharatvarsh. And he's not the only one. There are several leaders who've been saying for quite some time it's now time for Hindus to unite and seek an end to the discrimination where government controls only Hindu temples and not religious institutions of any other faith in India. In fact, Prime Minister Narendra Modi had referred to state control of temples in Tamil Nadu at an election rally in Nizamabad on the 3rd of October on 2023. But first, let's listen in to Pawan Kalyan, Deputy Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh, and other reactions that are coming in.
We have to constitute. I've been thinking for quite a long time. I think I propose to constitute a Sanatana Dharma Parirakshana Board or Sanatana Dharma Rakshana Board is very essential to keep the sanctity of temples alive, and any kind of mismanagement, any kind of desecration happens to idols and all. I think it is not about one party, it is not about one individual. It is, I think all of us should come together. I think that's one aspect we are looking at, and that's what we are going for.
हम पूर्ण तरह से सहमत हैं पवन कल्याण जी से, और पवन कल्याण जी से आपके आज तक माध्यम से हम यही बात कहना चाह रहे हैं। पवन कल्याण जी, हम तैयार हैं अगर आप इस में हमको भी शामिल करना चाहते हैं तो हैदराबाद में हम भी एक संस्था ऐसा शुरू कर देंगे, और चलिए जुड़ जाते हैं इसको देर ना करते हुए।
There are multiple cases in the Supreme Court to free Hindu temples from government control. But if it's Pawan Kalyan, the Deputy Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh today, in October 2023 at Nizamabad, Prime Minister Narendra Modi had also referred to the ill effects of government control on temples in the state of Tamil Nadu. Listen in.
साउथ के अंदर, खास करके तमिलनाडु में, मंदिरों पर सरकार का हक है। सरकार ने कब्जा कर लिया है। मंदिरों की संपत्ति को सरकारी मिलीभगत में हड़प किया जा रहा है। मंदिरों को तो लूटा जा रहा है, मंदिरों को तो कब्जा किया गया है, लेकिन माइनॉरिटी के पूजा स्थल को हाथ नहीं लगाते हैं, सरकार के नियंत्रण में नहीं लेते हैं।
So why is the Andhra Pradesh Chief Minister, the Deputy Chief Minister Pawan Kalyan, calling for the creation of a Sanatan Dharma Rakshana Board or a special group to protect the Sanatan Dharma? Why this battle cry to free Hindu temples from government control? Why is this battle cry gaining ground once again? Temples have been calling for freedom to manage their own affairs for decades. In fact, Some have argued that India got independence on the 15th of August 1947, but temples remain enslaved by governments and their revenue taken, as some argue, quite like invaders did pre-independence. But let's dive straight into this debate. Joining me on this special broadcast is Dushyant Sridhar, Vedic scholar and speaker, and Karuna Nandi, senior advocate at the Supreme Court of India. Dushyant Sridhar, why should Andhra Pradesh Deputy Chief Minister call for the creation of a Sanatan Dharm Rakshana Board? What does the Sanatan Dharm need protection from and for?
Namaskaram Gaurav, and namaskaram to my fellow panelists, and namaskaram to the viewers of India Today. 2 weeks back, I was very much in India Today, talking about a 1,500-year-old Tiruchendurai temple in Tamil Nadu with inscriptions of Parantaka Chola coming under the Waqf board. Last week, I was asked to give my opinion on the very same channel about stone pelting in Ganesh Chaturthi processions. This week, it is about the Laddu. Next week, I don't know what. So week after week, there is some issue or the other which is coming. And with respect to this particular issue, I'm sure Shri Pawan Kalyan must have meant about the control of government over temples. In my humble opinion, Gaurav, this Sanatana Rakshana board that he's talking about will make very little sense or no sense when there is actually government control over temples. So when the government is controlling temples, what is this board all about? The first step is to release and relieve the temples from the government board. The government has no business to be in the temples. The temples are meant for the Hindus and people worship. And I don't think any government, for that matter, I respect that they are not a part of the Muslim places of worship nor the Christian places of worship. That is how it should be. And why is this privilege not given to the Hindus? So I don't think Pawan Kalyan's recommendation of Sanatana Dharma Rakshana Board will make any sense unless and until the government relieves itself from the temples.
Let me bring in Karuna Nandi into this conversation. Ma'am, is there merit in some Hindus saying why should government manage temples and decide how the temple revenue will be spent? They don't do it, for a church or a mosque or a gurdwara. Why just temples?
I don't have a strong view on that at the moment. But what I do have a view on is the idea that the Sanatan Dharma deserves protection. I don't think it needs protection, I think it's important to understand that in this country, people of different faiths hold their faiths very strongly, and that those faiths are protected by their conception of God, whoever that is. That a board is not as big as God. So any sort of proclamation that you are going to come and protect a religion, I think is false, and it's to garner votes, right? But
or is it to protect a way of life? Why should government interfere only with Hindus is the point that Dushyant Sridhar had raised, ma'am.
I don't, honestly, I think one will have to look into it because there were sort of very strong debates around this around the time that Act was passed, also around the time that the Constituent Assembly was considering these issues, right? So one will have to go into all of that. With regard to, I think, the animal fat problem, that should and must be dealt with under the FSSAI Act. And that must be dealt with under the existing law, because you can't tell people you are giving them vegetarian food and mix animal fat into that, right? Like, that's not acceptable. And there's very clear law on that.
No, but is this a problem that's restricted just to that is what I'm trying to figure out. Sorry, go on, ma'am.
I think it should be, is my point. I think that when there is a nail, you use a hammer. You don't try and bring a nuclear bomb to it. There's the idea of proportionality. That when problem, you address the problem. And even actually for entirely different reasons, the speaker before me and I seem to agree that what the minister is saying is honestly not quite anything. It's not something that addresses any thing, any problem.
Dushyant Sridhar, what is wrong if the government appoints a chief executive officer or an administrator for the administration of temple affairs? Because I've spoken to some bureaucrats and they say that the entire effort is to ensure better management of temples, better facilities for devotees when they come in large numbers, and an administrative service officer is in touch with the district magistrate, he's in touch with his colleagues, with the superintendent of police, and overall they ensure a better experience for devotees at the temple compared to what may be run by priests or a private temple management, sir.
There are two levels in which we need to understand this, Gaurav. The very premise is that only when bureaucrats manage and those bureaucrats which are appointed by the government manage, the temples are being run well, will hold no water, because we've got people in the very own community who are well qualified, who can be appointed well. So in that case, how are churches and mosques being managed well? So are bureaucrats being appointed there? So that comes the first question. Second question, let's take the HRNC Act of Tamil Nadu. Tamil Nadu has the maximum number of temples and maximum number of ancient temples from the Cholas, Pandyas, Vijayanagaras, Nayakas, Pallavas. And it is also the state that has a maximum number of temples with a maximum number of inscriptions. And they say that about 12,000 temples or so do not have a priest. 10,000 temples have an annual income of less than 10,000. The priests are underpaid, not paid. So in what basis for the last 50 years that the Dravidian parties, one after the other, DMK, the ADMK have ruled, has ensured justice to the temples of Tamil Nadu? So if the case, the premise was, okay, the bureaucrats appointed by the government will do justice, Tamil Nadu is an exact scenario how temples should not be managed.
And Karuna Nandi, that's the point that Hindus have been raising. It's not just one issue of, alleged animal fat in the Tirupati temple laddus. That's one instance where you may want to use FSSSAI. But, Dushyant Sridhar listed out 5 instances in the past 5 weeks that we've taken up here on India Today, including Chola-era temples in Tamil Nadu that are now on Waqf land. And that is because those temples were not effectively managed by the government, would have been better managed by the devotees or the temple board themselves, is his argument. Karnanandi.
So look, I do feel that every issue has to be looked at on its own terms and has to be examined on its own terms. And I don't know about this temple that was allegedly on Waqf land. What we have found in the recent past is that with the Ram Mandir, there's, there are various frames that you can apply to it. And now things are being raised about Krishna temple in, I believe, Mathura and other places. And so its own facts apply to each case. And I honestly think that for the most part, politicians are taking advantage of and whipping up public sentiment in this regard. Right?
And you don't see this as Hindu revival. For example, when they say temple revenue, Hindu devotees who donate money to a temple, that money should be used only to propagate the Hindu way of life. Scholarship for Hindu children, old age home for Hindus, dharmshalas or arogyashalas for those who believe in the dharm. Because some of the lawyers I was speaking to, they said what the government is doing by managing temples is clearly not in line with either Article 25 or 26 of the Constitution that talks about freedom of faith to maintain an establishment and decide religious matters without external interference, madam.
That's too broad brush. We'd have to look at the specifics. As I said, actually the topic that I was given, to be honest, was that please speak on the fish oil and the beef business, right?
And the clarion call that's coming for Hindus to manage their own temples.
I was not asked to speak on that. It's not your fault, but I was not asked to speak on that. But I am going to also tell you that I really do feel that the way these discussions are framed, the way politicians take these, as I said, I do not think the Sanatan Dharma needs protection. I think the Sanatan Dharma is strong within the people. I think that gods are stronger than boards. We do not need boards. With regard to administration, I would have to apply my mind fully to that. Article 14 means that you have to treat equals and the same. You have to treat apples. If you have 3 apples, you have to treat them as apples. If you have 3 oranges, you have to treat them as oranges. But if you have apples and oranges, you need not treat them exactly the same. So the devil is in the details. We'd have to go into that. I have also found when it comes to, for example, feminism and Sharia law, everyone is very enthusiastic. But when it comes to the equal rights of Hindu women, nobody seems to care, and there is no reform. You know?
Okay.
So
but for the benefit of the debate today, I will stay on the issue of Hindus wanting to run their own temples and wanting to free temples from government control. Dushyant Sridhar, Hindus want to control the earth or the money to carry forward dharma for the yash and kirti of the temple. Am I understanding your war correctly? That you want the finances, or the Hindus want finances from the temples to take forward Hindu religion and Hindu way of life? Is that what this fight is all about, sir?
Okay. So as a devotee, let's assume that a devotee, out of sheer devotion and sincerity, offers money or something in the form of dhanyam, which is grains, to a temple. So the devotee, he or she is offering to the temple so that the temple can primarily run. Because to every temple, a traditionally old ancient temple, you have a annadana shala attached where food is being distributed, and that is done without any discrimination. Then there is a goshala where the products of the cows are used for the devata in the temple. So to run the temple, you need money, you need grains. So that is what a devotee generally does. But 2 out of 10 temples have a lot of money coming in the form of donation. So what do you do with excess money? So you create schools. So thereby you educate children. I'm talking just not about pathashalas, even modern schools where you can teach. You can create hospitals. You can create a lot of that. But for all of that to happen, the money has to come and it has to be spent the right way. For that right way, the Hindus should get it. Why should the government interfere when the government calls itself secular? And we are very, very, very sensitive about the word secular. Then why should the government even interfere in the temples? And if at all there is an inherent fear that there is going to be discrimination, I'm sure there is discrimination as well in churches and mosques. How many committees of mosques have all castes, subcastes of Muslims? Do Pasmanda Muslims have equal share in those both? Do women have equal share? I feel without any discrimination, both should be constituted, and that right should be given to the Hindus, and the government has no business to be there.
Fair enough. Karna Nandi, on the issue of law, is there merit if government does not control churches and mosques and gurdwaras or any other religious institution? The government has no business, especially in a secular state, to control Hindu temples or the administration and finances and revenue of a Hindu temple. On the principle, on the point of law.
As I said, I'll have to look into it further. Law is something that is very vast and is written in multitude of places, so I'd have to look into it. However, just going by what the previous speaker said and what he desires, the kind of vision that he sees of the world and the religious world, he feels that, and correct me if I'm wrong, sir, the previous speaker, that Pasmanda Muslims and women are not getting a share of the pot in money given, say in during as zakat or in other ways in mosques, and he is saying that that should happen, but he's saying that there should be no government interference in Hindu temples. Now, how are you going to ensure that there is that kind of access for everybody in a mosque if there is no governmental interference? Are you going to make sure that Dalits get access to the temples, and are you going to make sure that women get access to all the temples? There was a big debate about that. Are you going to make sure that there is no discrimination against trans people? Are you going to make sure of that? And how are you going to make sure of that if there is no governmental oversight or court oversight over it, right? So if we are talking about applying the same rules, then that would be,
Okay.
the goose is
Okay.
also
Dushyant Sridhar, last 30 seconds to respond to that as I wind up this debate. Go on, sir, respond.
Okay, very quickly, Gaurav, to reply to Karunaji. The point that I stated about the Muslim boards was not seeking them as beneficiaries. In the boards of various mosques and dargahs, do Pasmanda Muslims and do women get their fair share of being in the committee and in the board? They don't. So that's the point. So when it is left to the Muslims to manage, there is discrimination. Now, coming to the government control of temples in Tamil Nadu, there have been multiple cases where there is discrimination with the Tamil Nadu government at the helm of affairs. So the point is, people have to be educated. The board has to have a representation of all castes. There's absolutely no doubt. But my point remains very clear and straightforward, that the government has no business to be there, and it can have a representative as such. But with respect to the revenue, the Hindus should decide how they have to spend for the religion, and the government has no right to decide how the contributions of the devotees has to be spent.
There are several court verdicts on this, which incidentally are not being followed and there are some cases which are still pending in court, and we'll track the story very, very closely. Karunanidhi and Dushyant Sridhar, as always, many thanks for joining me. And this actually, in a way, brings us to the point that you bring a uniform civil code, let there be same civil laws for everyone in the country, and then let them manage their own affairs. But that perhaps is another debate for another time. For joining me here on India Today, many thanks. The Tirumala temple, it's a place of worship where the iconic Prasad, the Laddu, holds a very special place in the hearts of millions and millions of devotees, not just in India, but across the world. This controversy over the alleged report where animal fat from beef tallow to lard to fish oil, that's left a very bitter aftertaste. And this has led to a big war of words, the political war, whether it's between the TDP, the ruling party now, and YSRCP, the opposition, or at a national level. We bring you more in this fiery showdown.
Huge row over alleged adulterated ghee used in Tirupati Prasadam. National Dairy Development Board's lab test on some samples of cow ghee procured by the Tirumala Tirupati Devsthanam contained traces of fish oil, beef tallow, lard or pig fat.
It is adulterated with animal fats. So it is lard, which is a pig fat, then palm oil and beef tallow, then fish oil included, rapeseed, linseed and all these things. It's like a concoction of all these.
The temple board statement comes days after Andhra Pradesh Chief Minister Chandrababu Naidu at an event meeting claimed that animal fat was used in Tirupati Laddus during the previous regime of Jagan Reddy.
కావాల్సినటువంటి ముడి సరుకులన్నీ కూడా నాసి రకం వాడడం, అది కాకుండా పవిత్రమైన దేవాలయాల్లో కూడా అపవిత్రమైన ముడి సరుకులు వాడడం, ఇలాంటివన్నీ చేసి కంపు చేశారు.
Later, TDP spokesperson Annam Venkata Rama Reddy held a press conference displaying the lab report which confirmed the presence of beef tallow, fish oil and pig fat in the ghee sample. The centre has sought a report from the Andhra Pradesh government.
जो रिपोर्ट है जिस सोर्स से आई है, उस रिपोर्ट को पूरी तहकीकात करके उसके सारे पहलुओं को ध्यान में रख करके सूटेबल एक्शन विल बी टेकन अकॉर्डिंगली. जो भी कानून के दायरे में और जो भी हमारी नियमावली फूड सेफ्टी स्टैंडर्ड्स अथॉरिटी ऑफ इंडिया के तहत आती है, उसके तहत हम इस पर कार्रवाई करेंगे.
Deputy Chief Minister Pawan Kalyan called for a Sanatan Dharma Board to look into all temple issues and urged a debate on temple management in the country. Jagan's party YSRCP has moved the High Court, accusing Chief Minister Naidu of making heinous allegations for political gains.
Animal fat ghee కు బదులు వాడినారని ఇదే పెద్ద మనిషి చంద్రబాబు నాయుడు ముఖ్యమంత్రి హోదాలో ఉంటూ ఒక ముఖ్యమంత్రిగా తాను మాట్లాడిన మాటలివి.
The BJP and Congress has trained guns on Jagan Reddy, seeking a CBI probe.
उसकी CBI से जांच होनी चाहिए. CBI के जांच के दायरे में आना चाहिए कि कितने रुपए का घी लिया गया, कौन चर्बी का घी क्यों लिया गया, और दूसरा प्रश्न, ये हिंदू धर्म के साथ घोर अत्याचार है.
We are demanding a CBI inquiry into this issue because it is not a small issue. It does not pertain to a small group of people, but to crores of people. We have also written to the Home Minister of India, Mr. Amit Shah, demanding for a CBI inquiry into this matter.
Allegations of adulterated ghee being used to make Tirupati Laddus has become a political flashpoint. The state government now faces the challenge of restoring trust among devotees and preventing the situation from escalating to bigger crisis. With Apurva Jayachandran in Tirupati, in Andhra, Bureau Report, India Today.
We'll continue to track this story where Hindus are calling to free temples from government control very closely. But that is all I have for you on this special broadcast. Many thanks for watching. News and updates continue on India Today. Stay with us.